This video is about one thing and one thing only, passion. And it is passion that landed me not one, not two, but three multi-six-figure contracts with developers. And that's not to show off. That is to drive home the point of passion and what I want to discuss in this video. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Antonio. I've been a professional concept artist in the game and film industry for 8 years. I ran my own studio working for major companies, and I now founded Artwod, basically the Duolingo for drawing, because I want to make learning how to draw more fun and engaging. With that said, in this video, I want to give you some context on how I got here and why I wanted to make this video. So I'll give you a little story. Back in, I think, 2021, I was invited by then an acquaintance called Christian, who was going to start the very first or second iteration of this little event called Cave. Now, Cave was a local art event that they wanted to run, and they wanted to invite speakers. Now, because we were working together on an already very huge project, which I also landed to passion, but this one drives home the point a bit better. Because we worked on the same project, he invited me to come there and speak specifically on my area of expertise, which is character design. I accepted the invitation, and then I sat for a while thinking about how and what I exactly wanted to say in that presentation. Now, since then, I've given that presentation many, many times, and I'm also turning it into a YouTube video because it hits a snare with a lot of people. And I think the reason that is because when I was contemplating what I was going to say, as always, I didn't want to do what everyone else was doing, which is basically introducing yourself, telling all the projects you worked on, going through where you came from and all of that, and then eventually landing on where you are now and what you're doing, and then a little bit about your area of expertise. I didn't care for that. I think when I go somewhere, I want to add as much value as I can. Similar to what I'm doing here with YouTube, I want to give you guys as much value as I can when I make a video. So when I do a presentation, I wanted to also provide as much value. And I think the only way I could do that was to literally talk about the thing I'm really, really passionate about, which is character design. And more specifically, character concept design when I was doing it professionally. And so that was sort of my premise of starting that presentation. I wanted to give the students an idea I wanted to give them an insight into my head, my crazy head, about what I think character design should be and what I definitely think it is not. And that for me was sort of the red thread that I definitely wanted to mold into a presentation. Cool. Now, fast forward to the actual date of the event. I went there and I gave the presentation. And it went really, really, really well. It was very well received. And as I expected, it was unique. It was something people haven't heard before, and it really resonated with them. And here's the thing. It resonated so much with people. There was someone in the audience, I didn't know that was there because I thought I was just giving it for students. But one of the fellow speakers was an art director. But the thing is, he came there with the exact same expectation of just seeing a bunch of people going to the same style of presentations he has seen many, many more times than even me. People that just go through the motion of talking where they come from, what they do, blah, 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 basically giving a biography of their life. And usually he was very open about this. Like usually I just zone out. But he said, with your talk, I was in it from beginning to end. And from that moment on, he became a super high engaged potential client without me wanting it. Like I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't looking for it. It's just because the way I gave my talk. We parted ways. The event was done. And it only took about 2 or 3 months before he reached out and he immediately got a contract for my studio. And just like that, I didn't have to go through any art test or I had to do anything. The talk I gave was plenty. And that contract eventually rolled over into multiple contracts. And the funny thing is, I only stopped working on these contracts with the particular company this year. I had that contract for 3 years. And it was a very very lucrative contract because we provide a lot of value. Simple as that. And I've done that 3 times for the exact same reason people were so engaged with my talk. That brings me to the problem. Now, the problem is that many of you young artists, when you start in your career, you start as a very passionate and engaged individual. Like you absolutely love what you do, or you are triggered or you are inspired by seeing something that you absolutely love. And then from there, you sort of take your first steps towards the industry, towards being a professional. And then this funny thing happens. You go from being this very inspired, passionate individual to learning more about the industry, the rigid industry, the money machine. And because of that, you're not really any longer that very passionate individual. You become more of a rational individual. You're kind of killing your passion a little bit. Don't get me wrong, you're still passionate about your art and craft, but what initially drove you to actually enter the industry has been squeezed out because of the industry. Don't get me wrong. It's been squeezed out because of the industry because, and this is where a lot of, I feel, tutorials and mentorships get it all wrong. They give you advice on how to fit the molds of the industry. So how do you become this specific avatar concept artist, right? How do you become this? Not yourself, this. And a lot of you start listening to that. And when you start applying for jobs, and this is the caveat. So when your new sort of identity starts applying for jobs, what you guys tend to do is you tend to present yourself as if you will mold yourself to the needs of the client. From a hierarchy point of view, you treat the money people or the industry people, doesn't really matter. You treat them above you, right? You're like, please take me on. Please hire me. That's what you do. You're starting from a weaker position. So you have no bargaining power. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. And this is what I want to say, that your passion, the thing you are passionate about, or more specifically, your opinionated intensity about something, about your area of expertise, will actually attract people to you. And you can skip all of this. That's what I want to say. The reason for this is there's actually a psychological sort of component to this. Robert Cialdini, the guy who wrote the book Influence, talks about authority, right? So when someone speaks with authority, they are perceived as an expert, a professional, someone in a position of power. So that doesn't necessarily mean you have a position of power. By talking with an opinionated view on your passion, which is also talking with authority, you elevate yourself above these people. And now they need you. You no longer need them. This works brilliantly, guys. Now, caveat and disclaimer, you cannot fake this, all right? You cannot fake passion, or you cannot fake an opinionated, like intense, intrinsic motivation about your expertise. You cannot fake that. That will come through very, very fast. There actually needs to be an authentic passion for something specific. Now, for me, that was character design, and specifically character design, right? I have an entire rant about, I don't design costumes, I design characters. My studio has designed costumes for people, but for me, they're not characters, right? Characters are actors in a story with a certain set of objectives. That's what characters are. And the way that you design them is, for me, very, very important. And so that's what I talk about. And that's what I talked about in my presentation. And that's where I was very opinionated about how I think characters should look and how they should be designed, right? And what are the pitfalls and what I don't like. Like I'm talking about my likes and dislikes. And I think what is important here as well is that you can create such a sort of authority without already having worked in the industry. Now, of course, having worked in the industry helps because, of course, we need to have some experience into how we're going to work with certain departments to create the perfect vision of what you want to achieve. However, when you're starting out, you can still have a very opinionated view on things and how you want to do things. And that can be separate from knowing how the industry works, because you're just extremely passionate about things. And when you're passionate about something, you will learn specific things about it and you will form opinions about it that only are important to you or that only matter to you or a handful of people. And when you start talking with this sort of passion, with this opinionated intensity about your area of interest and expertise, people will listen to you. You no longer need to listen to them for that specific thing, okay? They will start listening to you. They will start treating you as an expert, no longer as a junior that needs a job. And I think that's something you can really learn from this. Because honestly, what I just said, that presentation, I gave it 5 or 6 times now, and 3 out of those 5 times I landed massive deals, like massive contracts, because I spoke from a place of authority and passion. And that really attracts people even from a psychological point of view. And the reason this works from a psychological point of view is because for the people listening to you, even the ones that have the perceived sense of power of offering you a job or a freelance gig or whatever, their decision-making process is immediately simplified because you are now the expert, albeit you're the expert they need. But if someone hears you talk and it's with this passion, with the sense of authority about your subject matter that you really know really, really well, and you have strong opinions about what it should look like, what it should be, how it should be, suddenly you're an expert. And the big power here is that, let's say even that some people are looking for a certain environment designer, but you come in and you bring this vision of what environment designs should be, and you have strong opinions on it because you have a passion for that subject. A lot of the times, because it simplifies the decision-making process, they will still take a chance with you because you're suddenly the authoritative figure. Instead of when you come into an interview or when you talk to people or when you go to events and you talk to art directors and you're like, what do you need? What do you guys want? Tell me what you want and I'll draw it for you. Well, they're still in control. They're still the decision maker. They still need to tell you what to do. And so hiring you means taking a very big risk, because the responsibility is still on them. They hired you to do the thing they think they need. And so they have all the responsibility. Whereas if you work with authoritative people or passionate people that are driven by their motivation and their passion for the subject matter they know really, really well and have strong opinions on it, it becomes much easier to hire that person because you can just let them do their thing. Because you can trust that from what they're saying, that's what they'll do. You don't need to give them that many directions, right? And even from a junior point of view, this works on all levels. From if you come into a team as a junior and the senior sees you and you have opinionated views on things that are driven by passion, okay? Not by telling people how things should be run, but just from passion of how you see things, it makes it easier to just steer you. For the art director, it makes it easier. And so you make it easier on people to onboard you. And I've seen this, not once, not 2, 3. I've seen it more on a smaller level, but like I've seen it 3 times on a huge level, where we come in as an authoritative figure, telling people how we think design should be, character design should be, and how we want to run things. And it's almost always met with a complete sort of surrender towards our process. Now, of course, we talk with the client and we steer and alter things where they need to be altered. But most of the times it worked wonders. And not once, but twice, we've heard from our clients that we were the best outsourced studio they've ever worked with. They could have been lying to me, but I like to think it was true. And I think a lot of the times it's just because we have this certain passion towards something, and that passion drove us to help the client. And it made the client or the recipient feel as if they were in good hands. As I said, this video is about passion. So I feel like whatever drives you, and maybe you haven't found your passion yet, maybe you just saw like, I want to get into concept art, then really try to find the thing that attracts you in concept art. Is it like game mechanics? Is that what drives you? Is that why you wanted to get into concept art? Is because you wanted to help pretty up game mechanics, right? It's because you really loved the environment designs in games and you wanted to help make that better, make it better for the player, then make that your passion and tell people why you would design an area a certain way to help the mechanics of the game, right? It can go very specific. Or like me, like if you have a passion about character design, don't just copy everyone's characters online because it's character design. No, have a specific reason why you want character designs. My reason was because I love how a character represents a story arc, how it represents a personality, how it's animated. All of that is very important for me. And I have strong opinions about that. And because of that, I have been more freely in how I create characters. And that all comes from that intrinsic passion and having an opinion on things. All right? Having an opinion is important. Don't forget that. People actually like people with an opinion. Don't let the internet fool you. It's good to have an opinion, but you have to stand behind your opinion. All right? That's all I had to say about that. So go find your passion. And as always, happy drawing.